I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Lovey.
And Salty and Chip.
And I'm Alec.
World famous.
Alec. Tendies. Alec.
Mm-hmm. World famous in small circles.
Monstrous baby hating Alec. Okay. Okay, so Alec is doing a song with us. He's a lifelong villager. If you want to know how to do a song with us, hit us up at Vin@gmail.com. Okay, Alec, what band are we listening to?
So today we're doing a band called GOATMOON, and the song is called Finnish Storm.
You should spoil your shirt.
Yeah. I don't know. Can you see it? I don't know if you can see it.
GOATMOON. Finnish Steel Storm. Okay, what is black metal?
Yeah, so the more specific genre is NSDM, or National Socialist Black Metal. So it's basically made by Nazis. I know at one point during a fireside, you guys asked for an NSDM band. So we talked to the True Cult crew, the group I'm in for Patreon, and we came up with this song together as a group.
Okay. Now, I heard one of your, you don't have, did anybody have any resistance to the song?
Yes, there were some people in the group who didn't want to do NSDM at all.
Why is that?
Well, they think it's giving a platform to Nazis because it's made by Nazis.
Okay. So Nazi stands for National Socialist, doesn't it? Isn't that what Nazi means?
Yeah.
Translation, Nazi. What's his face? I think Churchill used to call them Nazis, just to mess with them.
Oh gosh, okay.
So it's interesting. I know that we're probably going to get some backlash. How could you platform these people? Yada yada yada. And it's interesting because there is a particular band that we refuse to play or even review. So why would we listen to a Nazi? And I think it's important because I think those are things that carry certain implications that are healthy for us to discuss, especially in our current political climate. Because these folk, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm saying these folk are now emboldened to walk down the streets with their tiki torches and all this shit.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. Why do you think it's important for us to review this song, Alec?
Well, I think there's like a slowly growing white nationalist movement, partly in Western Europe and in the U.S., less so in the U.S. But I mean, I think it's a sign of a strong mind when you can entertain the idea without accepting it. So we don't have to accept Nazism, clearly. I mean, I don't. I'm going to guess you don't either. And I mean, there's also some parallels. So you've reviewed As They Lay Dying, whose lead singer, Tim Beasis, actually did try to commit an act of violence by putting a hit out on his wife. And you still did the song, which I think is fine. But as far as I'm concerned, even though they preach or advocate for violent ideology, members of this group haven't actually done anything violent in their lives, as far as I'm concerned. I might be wrong there.
And you're a fan of this band, obviously, because you hit your shirt.
Yeah.
So you're obviously a fan of this band.
I like the music.
So, all right. So here we go. And look, I don't want, just so you know, if you send me an email and say, Alec is a Nazi, he's terrible, blah, 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 I'm just going to completely delete it. Don't want to hear it. Okay?
So don't even waste your time.
Don't waste your time saying anything about my guy. And no, I'm not being objective about it. It's completely subjective. He's my friend. Okay. I don't see any need to pretend.
Nope.
But I know immediately there's going to be people.
Yep.
How dare you? And be more angry for me than I am about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. All right. So here we go. What's the name of this song again?
Finnish Storm, because they're from Finland.
We're going to... All right, so that was Alex band GOATMOON. Are you in this band, Alec?
No, they're from Finland.
Okay, so before we get into the lyrics are obviously provocative, but before we get into the lyrics, I really like the musicianship.
Oh, really?
Those guys are badass.
I felt like people were riding in on their horses. Like, people were coming in. Like, stuff was about to get real.
Yeah, they're about to do some jihad.
And then I really liked at the end, the guitar picking or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I really like that part.
They switched and they arpeggiated the.
I like that.
That was really.
It's pretty.
That's shit I like to do.
Yep, it is.
It is.
True. But these lyrics, I can't imagine you writing.
No, but the musicianship for black metal, I really liked it.
Yep.
The production, I thought, at least for the instruments, was really good. You know, the Mayhem thing, I just couldn't get behind it because the music just sounded terrible. The production for the music was terrible, but the production here was really good. So is this black metal still, Alec?
Yeah, it's still black metal. It just incorporates a lot of folk elements, which happens a lot in NSB. It's like traditional European folk because, you know, they're Eurocentric.
Right. So what is it that draws you to this band?
This is probably like my second or third favorite NSB band. My favorite is probably a band called Nocturnal Mortune. I like this one a lot because it's extremely folky, and some of their later albums venture into like pseudo-atmospheric black metal.
Okay, so what was that song? We did a second Mayhem. We did a Burzum song. What was the Burzum song we did?
Don't Go High.
Yeah, with the little thing in the background. It was pretty. That was pretty atmospheric.
Yeah.
Okay, so you like this band. Okay, so Purity Pounding in My Veins. How do you reconcile? Are you a Nazi? Like, do you have Nazi ideology?
No.
Are you a white supremacist?
Nah, I don't really recognize race as a valid scientific construct.
Okay, so tell everybody your background, because what do you do?
I mean, I'm still kind of new to it, but I recently just got a bachelor's in biochemistry. I work at a protein synthesis lab in Atlanta, Georgia.
So this is an actual scientist, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm sure we're gonna get a bunch of Nazis and they're gonna be like, and they're gonna come with their pseudoscience bullshit. I have an actual scientist on the line. Okay. So how do you reconcile your racist evilness with this racist evilness?
Yeah, I'm genuinely.
Because I take it at face value and just listen to the music. I mean, I think that black metal is an extreme music genre, so you're going to get extreme views regardless. I mean, you review black metal bands that constantly talk about violence, misanthropy, ending the human race. I mean, this is just another extension of that. So I don't find it particularly troublesome.
Alec, is all their music like that? Like, does it all have the general same theme, or is this just one of a bunch of their songs and this one happens to be like this?
I'd say a lot of their music has Nazi overtones.
It is interesting to me that you can have there's a lot of misanthropic black metal bands where they talk about like genocidally, like massacring the entire human race. So
I think it's when you narrow it down to one group, it's more offensive.
But that's my question. To me, there's like a lot of faux outrage about this stuff because it's like, here's this one band talking about like, who was it? It was it Dimmu Borgir? Where there was this one song where they were talking about like completely eliminating humanity.
Yeah.
And
there's quite a few bands.
There's a bunch of them. Oh, people equal shit.
Right.
So if Corey would have said black people equal shit, it would have been terrible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But all 8 billion people on the planet equal shit. Well, okay,
yeah, but it's
fine.
across the board. You're not just narrowing down a group and calling the one group scum.
Yeah, but if you do the math,
I know.
Humanity has a fighting chance with the Nazis. Whereas Dimmu Borgir and all the rest of them,
this is such a weird discussion.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
I see what you're saying.
I'm just saying, I'm very, very big on internal consistency. So if we can look at a song where all human beings are exterminated from the planet, in 1349, it was the same thing, right? They were talking about beings being exterminated. Why all of a sudden, when a group targets a specific group of people, now all of a sudden, now we're offended. Now all of a sudden, we're very good secular humanists. See what I did there, Alec?
Yeah. I mean, in just a few days ago, you guys reviewed Cannibal Corpse and a song about violently killing someone. I mean, I don't see how this is any more offensive than that.
Well, yeah, hammer smash face.
I didn't like that one either.
Well, yeah. No, I'm just talking about, I'm anticipating certain reactions from certain people or certain groups of people. And it's like, I mean, come on. Like,
okay, I know. Maybe it's because we haven't actually eliminated the entire human race. Maybe it's that we have actually done bad shit to Jews.
I didn't do any bad shit to Jews.
The Nazis
That was Alec
who are
and your ancestors.
singing, who are singing this. So maybe that's why it comes across as more like, it's because it's been done before. Where the other one never happened. It's just hypothetical.
Yeah, but I've talked to some of these people, and they really wish they could do that shit.
Oh, I know.
Like, eliminate all human. Have you ever ran into like a really misanthropic person, Alec?
Yeah.
And like, if they could, they would eliminate everybody, right?
I mean, I would assume so. I don't know if they had a button to press if they would do it, but
right.
What would they say?
So
but no, what I'm saying is that let's say you were the sole survivor and the entire world was like obliterated. All the people were killed.
Yeah.
And then you're like Father Time. You never died. And then the world repopulates and then somebody makes a song about killing everybody again. You are going to have a particular sore spot with that because your entire family was taken out in this kill the whole world thing. Well, when we talk about killing the whole world, nobody really has any emotional attachment as much as a Jew would have because Jewish people lost their family. Like, it actually happened.
Okay, but there have been people who've been bludgeoned to death by a hammer.
Yeah.
There's been probably millions of people who've left the world that way.
Yeah.
So hammer smash face. There's an actual historical precedent for that happening. Yeah. Why is everybody and everybody was
I don't know why people are okay with that.
Everyone's like, oh, you're taking it too seriously. Blah,
yeah,
blah, blah.
I don't know. That confuses me.
So what I'm saying, there's just a lot of contradictions.
Yeah.
To me, it's like either you're misanthropic and you hate humanity and you're cool with people getting killed, bludgeoned to death, or you think all of it is bad. But you can't say that you have misanthropic leanings and shit like that, and then when you actually have a group of people that are a subset of that, because it's a form of misanthropy to some degree.
Yeah.
You can't all of a sudden get on a moral high horse and say that this is wrong.
No, I see what you're saying.
It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Go ahead, Alec.
Yeah, I think this is just one of the cases where you have to separate the artist from the art to enjoy it, because clearly I wouldn't agree with them as people. Or agree with their political ideology.
I want to talk to these guys. Have you been in contact with these people, Alec?
No, I haven't.
Go get in contact with them. Tell them your brown friend wants to maybe we can have a panel with him and Varg and.
I can pretend to be Jewish.
Yeah, you can pretend to be Jewish. We'll round it out. God Almighty. So when you first heard these lyrics, Alec, what was going through your mind?
How long ago did you hear this?
This particular song, maybe a little over a year ago.
Oh, okay.
When I first started listening to NSBM.
And what were you thinking?
I mean, I already knew that they were Nazi band coming into it, so the lyrics weren't that shocking. I can listen to a song without acting out what they're saying in it, so it really just doesn't bother me that much, but I can see why it would to others.
So when you were talking about this in your True Cult group, was anybody like emotional, like what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, there were two people that did not want to do NSBM at all, saying that it's basically giving them a platform to spread their hate, that they shouldn't be listening to on the channel, stuff like that.
Are you in contact with your mom?
No.
Oh, I was going to say, what would she think about this band?
All right, let's go through the lyrics. Have you ever like really deep dived into the lyrics?
Not for this song, no.
Okay, purity pounding in my veins, like the Finnish steel storm that crushes the churches, mosques, and synagogues, the temples of my enemies. So purity, obviously, he's talking about his pure Aryan blood, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's a common thing throughout all of NSBM.
Yeah, when those guys were marching in a couple of years ago, they kept saying
blood and soil.
Blut and Guden, blood and soil. Why is their bloodline so important to them? Like, what does that mean for them?
I think it's just the general ancestry in Europe. They want, high grade whites or Aryans, blonde hair, blue eyes, stuff like that. I haven't really done much research into like German Aryan.
You have blue eyes?
No, I have green.
So
I guess I'm passable.
I'm thinking, yeah, you probably are.
Right. So tell me about so you have this idea that you don't even believe race is Would you call it a real construct? What do you mean
I
by?
don't. It's not really a strong scientific construct. It's more of a social one.
Okay, so define race and then explicate that for me.
I mean, so when we talk about race, it's generally always in a social context of, what skin color you are. Usually gets like conflated with ethnicity and nationality, stuff like that. And I mean, when you look at human populations, there's more genetic variation within a population of humans than between human populations.
Then what?
So there's more genetic variation between humans in one population than between all humans between populations.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Why is that significant? What am I missing?
And maybe I misunderstood.
Say back to him what he just said.
Are you saying that within a race of people, there's more variation within that one race than there is between races that are, like there would be more variation between me and a bunch of white people than there is between me and him?
Yes, as a general population, on the level of the population.
Oh.
So that's using S&P, or single nucleotide polymorphism tracking, through haplogroups.
Wait, say that again. Slow it down for the dumb people, Alec.
That's through using S&Ps, or single nucleotide polymorphisms, through haplogroups, the ancestry of humans.
Ah, okay.
Okay, I didn't hear that one. Sometimes the voice doesn't come through here very clearly. What's he saying?
Do it again, slowly and loudly, Alec.
Okay, so how that gets measured is by S&Ps, which stands for single nucleotide polymorphisms, which is how we measure genetic differences between populations in humans through haplogroup ancestries.
Interesting.
Somebody
That's very surprising.
Somebody should have informed these.
These poor jerks don't know this.
these gentlemen.
If we go back far enough, all humans are going to be African to some degree.
What did I say? Shout out to the
original man.
The original man. Ah, boy. We just did.
These people are never going to talk to you.
we just did the night. I'm like, "What's up, my brothers? Go speak to the gods."
So
okay.
Technically, your blood would be more pure.
Of course. Okay, so purity pounding in my veins. So that's talking about it's very interesting to me that people need these things to divide themselves from the rest of humanity. So we obviously have a perspective as to why people need to do that. What is you're Darwinist, naturalist, there's no God, blah blah blah. What's your explanation for why is there a Darwinian explanation for why there are people like this in the world?
Just basic tribalism. I mean, all primates exhibit it. So skin color is the most obvious difference to separate you from them. So clearly we group ourselves by race because it's the most clear thing. But I mean, skin color variation is not a legitimate way to say you're a different race than me, even though race does not have a strong biological definition at all. Like I can look at different toads in America that'll have different camouflage patterns of different colors. I don't say that they're a different race.
Right.
So the way you define race is arbitrary to some degree.
Is there any evolutionary benefit to being a racist? Does it help, at least on the micro level, for a given group of organisms to be?
I mean, I wouldn't think so. Tribalism or group theory is ingrained in humans and in all primates. So it makes sense to group yourselves by obvious similarities to compete for resources in an ecosystem. But I mean, do I think racism is evolutionary advantageous? I couldn't give an answer on that. I'd probably say no.
See, I would think that it would be. Well, but I don't know if what I've been taught about evolution is actually true. But if it's survival of the fittest, then you would want your group, like you would need some sort of a group to stick together to help you to survive. So I would think that if the group said, like figure out some way to divide yourself up. Oh, well, this is an easy way. Let's just divide up by race. So then we can, like you said, get a better position over the resources and the different stuff so your group can survive. Because if you're trying to survive as a whole, there's too many people fighting over the same stuff.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it about propagating the species, Alec, not your specific tribe?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Natural selection acts on the individual, whereas evolution acts on a population.
Okay.
So, I mean, the propagation of the species is usually a secondary concern.
I see.
To an organism.
So
You,
Sori,
you want to guarantee your individual lineage before the lineage of the species as a whole.
okay, so she has a point then.
I mean, somewhat. The thing, I mean, there are differences between populations of humans. Like clearly, somebody who lives in Ethiopia is going to have a much higher chance of having sickle cell anemia than I will. But again, that's not declaring them as a different race than me. That wouldn't make any sense.
Right. So whatever you want to call the division of category, the facts are that there is some on the natural selection level benefit to being like this to some degree.
Well, this is just an extension of Dawkins' selfish gene theory, which is a very strong idea in evolutionary biology, meaning that it's you first.
Did you call it selfish gene theory?
The selfish gene theory. You want to propagate your genetic lineage before all others. So you want to have offspring.
Is this Darwin or Dawkins, you said?
Dawkins.
Okay, so he came up with this idea or codified
The selfish gene theory, yeah.
Okay,
He
so
had a lot of work in expanding it as well.
say it again.
So it's generally you want to secure your own genetic lineage or the genetic lineage of the species as a whole. And this is, I mean, evidenced in many organisms. So that you will do things that harm the species as a whole to help your genetic lineage for reproductive fitness, which is the goal of evolution.
Is this something that he just declared as fact, or did he put any sort of leaning whether he thought that was a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, science doesn't really tell you if it's good or bad. It just observes what happens in the natural world.
So he didn't make any,
Well, that's what I've been trying to tell people. Is that science it's not the job of the scientific method to define morality.
No, I know, but
observe,
yeah, I guess.
It's just to observe
Maybe
what actually is. Am I right, Alec? I mean, is that?
Yeah, more or less. I mean,
well, you know how when we're looking into our religion, and you'll be like hell, for instance. Well, this is what it says, so that could be your fact. But then you're like, but I don't like it. That's your opinion on it. But does he doesn't put his opinion on something. He just states what the facts are according to his worldview. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the 2 books that they wrote regarding this phenomenon, yes. I mean, he just states how it is, how it's evolutionary advantageous to act like this, and so on and so forth.
Okay. So then all the folks who are upset about social Darwinism, if I look at Dawkins's understanding of the selfish gene theory, there is a place for social Darwinism then.
If you want to conflate it to a social ideology, changing the principles around it, sure. But you're not really holding true to the book or what is observed in reality.
Well, if I'm understanding you right, the selfish gene theory says that it's more advantageous for you to replicate, the healthiest version of your gene profile. Is that right? Is that the idea?
Say that again.
Does the selfish gene theory basically states that it's more advantageous for you to replicate the healthiest version of your particular gene profile? Is that the idea?
Over the benefit of the species, yes.
Okay, so then how does that go against social Darwinism? Isn't social Darwinism simply the selfish gene theory in action?
Because evolution has no end goal. You're just acting in a way to increase your overall reproductive fitness. If you want to apply it to a social ideology and have a stated end goal, in which case you're no longer undergoing naturalistic evolutionary philosophy.
Well, aren't we? Because you're saying because we're consciously doing it on purpose.
Yes.
Wait, what is this social Darwinism?
So, define social Darwinism, Alec.
Well, you're the one using it, so it'd be better if you did it. My definition might be slightly different than yours.
Well, you're the scientist, so you've got the canonical definition.
So social Darwinism is not a scientific thought, so I'm no expert on it.
Yeah, but isn't that your expert? Isn't that your belief system? Don't you believe this?
No, not social Darwinism.
That's why I brought up, because most atheists / naturalists don't like the concept.
Well, why don't you both give your definitions?
Okay, so for example, the eugenics program that Hitler and his folks wrote in, it's basically these guys are their gene pool is terrible.
Yeah.
So let's get rid of them so that they can't reproduce. And then we'll have a pure, more fit gene pool.
Okay. They call that social Darwinism?
Well, that's what it's been labeled.
By who? People that like evolutionists, like people that like Darwin?
Well, that was a justification that they used for it. Now, most because of the obvious morally horrific implications, most
Reject it.
Most rejected. But
Okay.
is that an
So how would you
accurate
define it?
accurate definition of social Darwinism?
We'll go with that definition for now, just to keep it simple and agree on it.
Okay. So then, but what you're saying is that doesn't really count as evolution because we're consciously manipulating the gene pool instead of letting it take its course.
You're manipulating it, which is not a strong or maxim for natural selection. So you're enforcing it. Because natural selection is the pressure of the ecosystem or the environment upon the individual.
Well, yeah, but you don't believe in free will anyway. So even if I have that thought in my head, isn't that just a part of nature dictating how it's selecting?
So my ideas on free will is that there's an unbroken chain of cause and events, not that it's fatalistic in any way, which is how I think you're purporting it to be.
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is it seems to me that when you say that we're manipulating it, you're saying it's almost like humans are acting outside of nature to influence nature. And my understanding from your perspective is that we can't act outside of nature. So if we have that thought in our minds to manipulate the gene pool, that came about because of our ecosystem and all the other events that led up to even having that idea in the first place.
Yeah, that's what I would think too.
Right?
I mean, the thing about evolution or natural selection in this term, which I think we're focusing more on natural selection, is that it's just a way to improve overall reproductive fitness or reproductive success. But things like social Darwinism does not do that on a large scale. So you don't get evolution in that regard, because as I said earlier, evolution functions on the level of the population, not on the individual.
Yeah, but isn't it true if we got rid of all the genetically disabled people that carried, genes that would propagate disability, wouldn't we be able to accomplish a more fit reproductive generation?
Well, the thing there is that genetics are a very tricky thing, because disabled people, the genes that cause disabilities might also cause advantageous benefits in other regards. I mean, that's
right.
Something that relates back to sickle cell anemia. I mean, you would consider it a disability because it results in a lot of people dying, having very bad lives, but it also confers resistance to malaria, which is very advantageous in the region of the world where it stays. That's why it stays in the gene pool.
You mean like, I saw this guy one time, he used to go into McDonald's and he would he had the entire menu memorized. I don't even, he would just say it off, boom, 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 boom. He wasn't even looking at it. But he was mentally handicapped, but his memory was incredible. And they said that he had a very photogenic memory, that he would just look at something one or two times and then he would you mean stuff like that where, okay, so in one area he's weaker than us, but then in another area he has a strength. So
I mean, more or less, yeah, because there's this thing called pleiotropy where it basically means one gene has multiple outcomes. So I mean, we can look at genes that cause high intelligence or high IQ in humans, but they're also closely related with high rates of depression and schizophrenia.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So would you call that a bad gene? When we look at it one way, it confers higher IQ and intelligence.
The genes that are generally more intelligent, they're also linked with people with higher depression or people with schizophrenia.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're very intelligent and you struggle with depression.
Do you struggle with depression, Alec?
No.
He's superior.
Okay. He's superior.
He said no.
Weakling, silly Negro.
That's not to say I won't later in life.
Have you read this thing about Iceland where they basically eliminated Down syndrome from their population? Are you familiar?
No. Is it through abortion?
Yep. 2017. By CBS News, Iceland, why Down syndrome in Iceland has almost disappeared. I mean, wouldn't that be a form of because they just kill them as soon as they figure it out. They're less than 0.5% of the population now. The vast majority of women close to 100%. Yada yada yada. If anybody wants, we'll put the link in the description.
Mhm.
But wouldn't that be a form of eugenics and social Darwinism?
Yeah.
Would you?
But again, you're conflating social Darwinism and eugenics with like naturalistic evolutionary principles.
Well, yeah, that's the assumption that human beings are somehow supernatural. Or, I mean, we're just natural. We're just natural, right? So if we choose to eliminate Down syndrome, isn't that simply nature acting upon it? Because we can't do anything outside of nature, right?
So what confers Down syndrome if we were like in an early society, or
You're getting all choppy.
or the reproductive age.
Alec,
Like,
Syndrome is just
you gotta start that over. It was all
say that
choppy.
again. I'm sorry.
You're breaking up.
all right. Where do you want me to start from? Am I better now?
Yeah.
When you said you're conflating.
Yep.
Do it again.
I think that was earlier, but so in the case of Down syndrome, it's just very strictly a chromosomal defect that causes it. You have a replication of the 21st chromosome. So if we were to look at something like prehistoric humans, people with Down syndrome would almost likely not reach reproductive age. You would see the rates of Down syndrome go down very low. But I mean, evolution doesn't care if people die; it just occurs.
Right. It's just natural selection.
Mm-hmm.
Do you look at that as a positive development? What Iceland did? Like, let's say.
No, especially if it's not socially engineered enough.
Okay.
If it's not socially engineered, what does that mean? What do you mean?
As in, like, I don't know the specific case that you're referring to in Iceland, but if it's like, the government is encouraging women to abort babies with Down syndrome, then no, I would not look at that as positive. But I don't know the specific case at all, so I can't really comment on the methods employed there.
So if the government is not encouraging it, they just do the screening and the women are choosing it, you're okay with that?
I mean, if the women are doing it on their own, I really have no say in that regard.
Okay. So I think, like, let me make a statement. It's kind of provocative. Everybody's like horrified.
Wait.
Go ahead.
So what's you said if the government is the one that's making it happen? Why is that? Because wouldn't that again be survival of the fittest? If the government has gotten to the place where it is because it's somehow stronger than
Survival of the fittest just means having high levels of reproductive success, but I mean, aborting people, mandatory abortions is the opposite of reproductive success. You want to increase the overall reproductive success of an organism to increase its lineage.
Oh, okay.
So if I look at something like China's one-child policy and some of the mandatory abortions they enforce there, I wouldn't consider that a benevolent thing, either in regards to evolutionary principles or just social philosophy.
Okay.
So let me say something provocative to get back to the subject matter of the song. A lot of people are horrified by Hitler and the Holocaust and his program, but the mindset that, for example, let's say that the narrative is true and Iceland is like, we just need to get rid of all these Down syndrome kids. Isn't there some overlap with that mindset in Nazism to some degree?
In terms of the eugenics movement, likely yes.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why this stuff doesn't really bother, the GOATMOON stuff doesn't really bother me. Because on the one hand, you'll have people saying, oh my God, this is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, they're saying, yeah, if the kid's got Down syndrome, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
It's the same shit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're back. You know what's interesting? Why do they have a problem with, so I think, is this true? Do you know about the history of Finland? Did the Catholic Church come in and force Christy? We're pretty famous for doing that. Did we enforce Christianity in Finland?
I'm not sure in that regard. I don't really know much about the history of Finland.
So I was doing some research with Varg, and obviously the way Christianity came to his lands, I understand the animus toward Christianity. Why do they have a problem with? So I'm assuming that we probably introduced Christianity to Finland in a not so Christ-like way. So I'm just going to assume the animus towards churches, but why the animus toward mosques and synagogues? Is it religion across the board and they want Is there a
funny.
certain religion?
What color are the people that are in mosques? And the Jews,
I mean, they're not.
they're humbles.
The Jews are self-explanatory as to why they don't like the synagogues, because they're Nazis. For mosques, I mean, I'm pretty sure Nazism has a disdain for Islam as well. For the churches, I'm not so sure.
What do you mean? What color are the people in mosques?
These are. Isn't this talking about like Aryan people? Like, so
You can be Aryan and a Muslim. What are you talking about?
it's not really. Mostly all the mosques. What? How many mosques do you see with white people in them?
Sorry, go to China. There's a whole bunch. They're Chinese. They look like a regular
Blonde
Chinese
hair,
person.
blue-eyed people in a
Yeah,
mosque.
absolutely.
Oh.
What are you talking
Well,
about?
I've never seen it, so I didn't know.
Go
what
to
happened.
Georgia. These guys are Russian. They speak Russian, and they're all Muslim.
Really?
Yes, it's not just brown people that are in the
Oh.
mosque.
Oh, I didn't
What
know
the
that.
hell? Okay, so the synagogue
Thank
makes
you for laughing at me.
great. Now the SJW. Alec, can you hear the hooves of the SJWs riding the Sword Rescue? Okay, so I can tell why they're mad at Jews. Why are they mad at Muslims?
So I don't think Islam is compatible with Nazism, because Nazism has a lot of like pagan roots and like blood rights and shit like that, and this also has a lot of generally Catholic roots as well. So that's why I also don't really understand the dislike towards the churches in that second line.
I see. You're saying Nazism is a mishmash of paganism and Catholicism?
More or less.
Then why do they want to burn churches?
I don't know. I don't think it was very representative of 1930s and 40s Nazism in all regards.
I see. Okay. Because Hitler didn't want to burn churches. I mean, he just made sure that the preachers were going along with his
Right,
agenda.
the party line, yeah.
And as long as the churches were doing that, he was good. If you weren't, you got sent to the camp like everybody else, right? As you trembling, weeping, watch the glowing nuclear holocaust in the horizon, you will feel once again the oppressing wrath of elitist tyranny. You know, there's this sort of like, with the power of steel, we will take back what once was ours. And then they, you know, those guys a couple years ago, they were saying, you will not replace us. Is there this sort of feeling among white people that y'all are losing something or whatever?
I mean, in white supremacist groups, yes. I think in this specifically, it's that the takeover of Europe, first by Christians, then by Jews, now by Muslims, which is the general idea behind modern Nazis.
Okay.
That's, oh, we will take back what is ours, we'll take back Europe, stuff like that. Defend Europa.
So so they're, because we've had this debate back and forth, and this kind of seems to confirm my argumentation. Are they not familiar with Hitler's Christian roots? Hitler's supposed Christianity? Are they not familiar with that?
You'd have to ask them.
Or did they know that Hitler's Christianity was just bullshit to manipulate the German populace?
I mean, it was likely the latter of those two options. And I think the members of this band are either atheists. I'm pretty sure they're atheists.
Who?
Just from the other song,
These
GOATMOON.
guys?
Yeah.
So then you were being disingenuous when you were debating me and saying that Hitler was a Christian.
Well, he made over 100 references to the Almighty in Mein Kampf.
Yeah,
Well,
but
a few other
you-
homages to Christianity.
you just said that it was more likely the latter, that he was just using that to manipulate his populace.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't draw a direct line from Christianity to the actions done by Hitler.
Okay.
But it's easy to use Christianity to wake people up.
Well, I mean, isn't it true that if the people were Islamic, that Hitler's MO, he would have just used Islam and said, sure, huh?
That's what leaders do. That's what Trump does. Do you think he's really a Christian? No.
No true Scotsman fallacy, Alec.
He can't even quote a single verse from the Bible. Yet he always panders to the Christian vote.
Yeah, when they had, what's his face at Liberty University.
Yep.
He said 2 Corinthians 7, for freedom Christ has set us free. Of course, on the English side, they say 2 Corinthians and 1 Corinthians. They don't say 1st and 2nd Corinthians, but Trump, it was just on the card, and he just saw the 2. He doesn't know enough
Right.
Bible. Yeah, there seems to be this feeling of like almost a reaction to being humiliated, in the sense of like, you know, the Jews came in and took your land, the Christians came in, now the Muslims, and there's this feeling of powerlessness, and this kind of gives people a sense of place and empowerment to some degree. Like it seems like a lot of these folks are like standing like idly by while their nation gets and their culture gets taken from them. Have you ever talked to any of these folks?
No.
I mean,
I've watched interviews of like prominent white supremacists like Richard Spencer in the U.S. thinks that way, but I don't know any personally.
Yeah, like, do you get that same idea that they're using this because they're psychologically in a state of humiliation in their minds because all these people are coming and just wrecking their country and there's nothing they can do about it?
So what do I think they're using it for?
Like,
what was your question?
To counteract this feeling of powerlessness that they feel.
Yeah, I think so. I think they want to return to the old ways. That's generally how they view it.
What's interesting is these folks have never really experienced the old ways, have they? I mean, these guys are all post-World War II existence, right?
Yeah.
So they've never even experienced the old ways. So what the hell are they talking about?
I think they just have a longing for like traditional European values. Of course, they inject pretty strong racism into that as well. But I mean, I can understand the notion that Europe is losing its identity somewhat, but I don't think this is the answer.
But who gets to define Europe's identity? Because there's a lot of Christianity in Europe, and it seems to me that they want to go prior even to that. And say,
well, I think the person making the statement defines what they view as old Europe.
So prior to the Christian invasion.
So I'm assuming you guys want to return to pagan Europe.
Right. So why is that version of Europe romanticized to these folks?
I'm not sure. I don't hold the same romanticism, so I don't think I can answer that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, you know, and like in America where Americans say, I just can't wait for the good old days when we're in the 1800s. I'm like, motherfucker, they weren't good old days to me. I tell you. What are you talking about? Okay. Yeah, it seems like there's just a lot of disempowerment. The time of never sympathies is over. Strong. What are they talking about?
Well, clearly they're done with Africans in Europe.
But those are their fathers, genetically speaking.
I don't think scientific evidence is their guiding ideology here.
So what do they mean by sympathies? Does Europe sympathize with Black people?
I'm not sure if they have programs like affirmative action over in the EU.
Okay.
I would assume they do.
Yeah.
So I think that would be considered what they're talking about in regards to sympathies.
I see. So they're angry at Black people. They don't really say much about Muslims. I mean, they said one thing about they're going to destroy the mosques, but it's the Jews and Black people that really...
They have other songs about Islam and Muslims, but I chose not to do one of those. I don't feel like getting death threats.
We did that song, the Exodus song. Nobody threatened us.
Well, theirs are a bit more. A lot of the Indian theme songs about Islam are a bit more blasphemous than that one.
Well, I mean, the Exodus song, they called Muhammad a false prophet. That's enough to get you to get a fatwa written up against you for sure.
The drawing will get your head cut off.
Yeah. Streets covered with pieces of glass. That's obviously a reference to Kristallnacht in Germany prior.
What was that when they were breaking into all the shops?
Kristallnacht was the night of broken glass. Yeah.
That's what I thought they were doing.
Yeah.
Sky filled with black clouds of smoke. You think that's like the Holocaust or what was going on? The burning of the bodies?
Yeah, I mean, they explicitly say the Star of David will see no light again. Why are they so mad at Jews? Jews are always the minority wherever they go, except for, Israel. They're
just harkening back to the old idea in Nazi Germany that the Jews was the reason Germany lost World War I. They didn't throw their monetary support into the banks into the war effort. Then afterwards, the Jews were still living comfortably by owning the banks while the rest of Germany was suffering. So of course, they got scapegoated.
I see. I see. Yeah, Jews are always like 2 or 3% of any given population, but they're always like the bad guy. Good Lord. All right. So they're mad at Jews. They're mad at black people. They're mad at Muslims. They want to kill us all. Raise hands in our hails for victory has suffocated the helpless prances of democracy. Because these guys are nationalist socialists, right? So they don't.
Anti-democratic.
They're anti-democracy.
Okay.
Why are they anti-democracy in your mind?
Because democracy gives a voice or vote to even minorities, which obviously they don't want.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They want elitist tyranny. So they want one race, one people, stuff like that.
Fleeing herd of subhuman scum. There it is again. So you gotta. They couldn't resist having to dehumanize the people that they want to murder because they're creating the image of God, and you can't just willy-nilly kill another image bearer of God.
Right.
That's my psychological. What's your perspective on this pattern with human beings where we have to dehumanize groups of people before we commit genocide? How do you reconcile that? What do you think's going on there?
I mean, I think it's just a general psychological principle that it's easier to detach yourself from people you're about to kill.
I don't know. I think sonically, I really like the song. I was expecting it because it's black metal, and I'd never heard of the band, and the album cover looks like they took it in their backyard. So I was like, oh, this shit is gonna be, trash. But I don't know. I thought the production was good. I could kind of tell. I'll tell you what, vocally, this guy is better than the Cannibal Corpse people.
Oh my word, yeah.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think? Like, don't you think vocally, at least he was somewhat legible to some degree?
Yeah, they're completely different styles, but I prefer the black metal style here more so than.
I can't stand that Cannibal Corpse stuff. Like vocally, because I don't know what the hell you're saying. Like. I feel like it doesn't take any talent at all to sing that way. Where I do think it takes some talent to do this.
And I hear what you're saying. There was parts where I was able to follow it. Sometimes I got a little lost. I was like, where are we? But some of it I was able to follow.
The thing I like about this song and this music genre in particular is that you can hear the emotion. You can tell that they hate people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. The Cannibal Corpse thing, there was no,
yeah, I said it reminded me like a little kid that just wants to be bratty. It wasn't like.
Yeah. Did you see the comments, Alec, that they're like, Sori was triggered. She was afraid of Cannibal Corpse. It's like, what?
No.
She said they were 6-year-olds. What about the Death Skull? It wasn't that part of the, that was part of the Nazi insignia, wasn't it? The Death Skull?
Yeah, I think that has some sort of pagan roots. I'm not sure exactly what.
The SS troops, right? They had the Death Skull on it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well.
So what are you giving it?
I love the musicianship. This is, how McGuire has that, like, they stay with that melodic.
Yeah.
These guys did too, only with a little bit more variation. Mm-hmm. I really, really like that. I like the emotion, and I like the emotion because it was like, okay, this is, obviously I don't agree with the lyrics, but see, this is the thing that gets me. It's like, if he just would have wrote the song about destroying Christians and burning churches, I'm sure the people in your crew that were upset about this song, Alec, would have been fine.
Most likely. So
if he took the racial element out of it and said, he talks about, like, he starts off the song talking about burning churches, mosques, and synagogues.
Yeah.
If he would have just stayed about saying, you fucking Christians, we want to kill you all, like, nobody would have a problem.
Yeah.
For the most part. And I know this because we've done songs where people talk about the deicide song, Kill the Christians. Nobody was saying, oh my God, how could you do this song?
Right.
You shouldn't give this type of hate a platform.
Right.
So this is actually an interest. I mean, I obviously have so what's his name? Behemoth has a song, Christians to the Lions, right? We haven't looked at it yet, but I'm assuming we can understand what he's talking about. Deicide has a song, Kill the Christians. Why is it okay to target? Because that's targeting a specific group of people
that have been targeted in the past. Remember how I said, well, if it's never happened, like maybe people, but like, I mean, Nero was lighting up his gardens,
right?
And, you know what I mean? So it's not like It's not like there's no history of it.
Why is it okay, Alec, to have a song called "Kill the Christian," but it's not okay to say the time of nigger sympathies is over?
Well, I think at least in modern leftist thought, Christians are not an endangered group or a marginalized group. You guys still hold the global majority and majority in the U.S. in terms of population. Christians as an entire group have not experienced a genocide in recent history, whereas others have. I'm not saying I agree with the position of the modern left regarding this, but blacks are considered a minority in the U.S. and in most of the West. Muslims aren't. Jews have always been considered an endangered group or marginalized group throughout history.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just think the selective outrage is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot of these.
I see what you're saying.
A lot of these people are talking about eliminating whole religions and killing people.
Yeah.
You have a song called "Kill the Christians," like, but then you're gonna go crazy about these people.
Well, I think that we've also been trained to like about the Holocaust. Like we learned about it in school. It was something that was, I don't know. I think that society might have a stake in why we have that reaction over it, where society doesn't have an outrage about people going after Christians.
Yeah, it's just the selective outrage where people are like righteously angry about even doing a song like this is strange to me. All right, Alec, what do you give the song?
I'm gonna give it a 9.
What about you?
I do find the lyrics offensive and like, but I do know there are people that literally believe this and like, that it's tough. I guess I'm gonna have to go with like I reject the lyrics. Let it be known. I reject the lyrics. But I think that they communicated their point well, and I think that they like encompassed all of it. So I guess I would go with more like again, those kind of vocals and stuff like that are not really my thing. So I think I'm gonna go with a 7.5 or a 7. I'm not sure. I'm going between a 7 and a 7.5.
This was also a 9 to me. I love the musicianship. I liked hearing the emotion in the voice because obviously disagree with I'd like to talk to these guys. I obviously disagree with the
topic,
with the topic and the message, but I just feel like if you feel disempowered and you want somebody to blame for your misery, and you don't have an outlet for, because us, when there's something wrong or something bad going on, we have this entire construction of why, and like I said, our theology carries a ton of utility to deal with life on a individual, familial, social, society, macro level. Right. And if you don't have that, then people are going to latch on to something, and everybody wants to be part of something bigger than themselves. Nobody wants to just, and so like to them, there's a cause, there's something. So I'm not, it doesn't really affect me the way that I guess it's supposed to affect me as far as being offended. It's like, well, what do you want? They're trying, I'm not justifying it. Let me just say explicitly, I am not justifying Nazism. I don't believe in Nazism. I think it's bad. I think human beings create the image and likeness of God. So killing anybody, black people included, goes against that. But I do think that human beings have this insatiable desire to be part of something bigger than themselves and a cause. And, especially with men, you got that kind of, that kind of combative juices flowing that they're, I've said it a bunch, where people put themselves in situation where they're able to exercise that. And sometimes it's legal and sometimes it's not, based on the arbitrary standards of the people in power at the time. So,
right.
I don't have it's a 9 for me. It's a 9. I think they did a damn good job at what they were trying to accomplish, what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
The lyrics were kind of simple. you know, that's why I didn't give it a 10 because, you know, there was no real irony in the lyrics. There was no real, you know, there was no real, I didn't really think it was that thought through. Go ahead.
I don't think you can get super poetic when it comes to just Nazi lyrics, to be honest.
Well, you would think, but Cannibal Corpse had some kind of poetic lines when we like really broke it down. I mean, I thought it was gross and weird, but something about like the beauty, as he was like the beauty of it was kind of, it was gross, but
yeah, there was some irony, but I hear what you're saying. Not that I want to. It's interesting because these guys have an RIP section on their page where they talk about dead artists, and this guy is from India. Oh no, this is Encyclopedia Metallum. It's Metal Archives. It doesn't necessarily
mean it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was about to say, like, here's this
Indian
guy.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So it's a 9. I think it sparked very, very interesting conversation. I think people need to really, if you're mad about this song, but you're okay with deicide, kill the Christians or the other shit, I just think you need to look at yourself and, you know, think it through. Because let's just be consistent. Okay. What are your final words, Alec? I've already got you on record saying that you're not a Nazi.
Right.
So I've already got on record that anybody who says crazy shit about you in an email is going to get deleted.
It's fine. It doesn't bother me.
So what do you have to say, sir?
If we look back at the 20th century, I think it's quite apparent that at least the people who pushed forth communism chose far more people than those under the guise of Nazism. Yet in modern society, it's a lot more socially acceptable to call yourself a communist than it is a Nazi. Which is a little odd. Well, I'm not condoning or supporting or directly attacking either ideology directly. I'm just saying, in terms of death toll, I think communism beats Nazi.
Yeah, that's
quite a bit, at least in terms of the 20th century. We still even.
Yeah. No, I agree. I that's another thing that's strange to me is that
a discussion for today.
Talking, it's just breaking up.
Oh, okay. Say that last part again, buddy.
All right. Where do you want me to start from again?
Where you said that communism, as far as the death cult, is worse than Nazism.
Yeah, I mean, so those who say they are communists in the 20th century killed far more people than I think Nazis did. But yet, in today's society, especially in the West, it's a lot easier, more acceptable to call yourself a communist or Marxist, or whatever variation thereof, than it is to call somebody a Nazi.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable to me. These kids walking around with their Che Guevara shirts and all that shit and Lenin. Well, you know, there was this kid. There's this kid on YouTube, and he's a Leninist, and he was talking about basically saying that we need to kill all these rich people and take all their shit and then redistribute it. And he was talking about like killing people. So it's like communists massacred millions of people, and for some reason it's in vogue to use the hammer and the sickle and talk about Lenin and Stalin as if they're these heroes, but then you got somebody with a swastika or a Hitler thing. No, they're bad. They're bad people. And the selective outrage is killing me. Let's be consistent, huh? Okay.
I mean, I think one point you can say there is that, I mean, the ideology of Nazism is like explicitly, you have to kill these people, remove these people from society. Whereas communism, it doesn't directly state that. I mean, in the end results of communism, they did occur with lots of dead people.
Yeah. I don't really care like how we got there. Both ideologies bodied literally millions of people. And it seems to me that the ideology of is the classism, the class warfare that Russia, the communists used to propel their programs of mass murder, are not less evil to me because they use class as the marker versus, racial identity, which you just clearly showed us is not really a a meaningful scientific distinction. So there's that. All right, my guy. Thank you so much for this. This was good in the sense of I really liked the discussion. I thought it was pretty thought provoking. Reach out to these people, Alec. Let me get an interview.
I might try.
Okay. Vin out.
Sori out.
Alec out.
Gone.